This episode may not be suitable for all listeners. Therefore, listener discretion is advised. In the chilling months of December 1957 and January 1958, a horrifying string of events unfolded, forever etching itself into the annals of American crime history. It was during this haunting period that Charles Starkweather, a mere 19 years of age, unleashed a reign of terror upon the unsuspecting lands of Nebraska and Wyoming, leaving a deep scar on the hearts of all who heard his name. Accompanying him on his macabre journey was his young and impressionable 14-year-old girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugit. Hello, strange ones.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Faith.
And I'm Sharon.
And this is She Sees Weird People.
When I first began researching this story, I read and combed through so many articles and stories, and I watched documentaries, and I read transcripts, and there was so much information about Charles Starkweather and his 14-year-old girlfriend. But it bothered me a lot from the very beginning that a 14-year-old girl would be able to become the protagonist in this story. In the 1950s, when women were taught to sit and be polite and do as they were told. In digging deeper, I've come to see the story in a little bit different light. I at first thought this was a debate of nature versus nurture alone, but it's also become a study of the mindset of the people, law enforcement, and the culture of the 1950s. So for this case, I have 3 questions. Number 1, which is present in almost every case, the nature versus nurture question.
Okay.
Number 2, does the media, news, gaming, movies, social media, whatever, play a part in creating criminals? And
Right.
Number 3, was Carol Ann Fugit a participant or a victim?
Good question.
All right, let's start with Charles Starkweather and his version of events. Charles Starkweather was born on November 24th, 1938 in Lincoln, Nebraska, the third of 7 children. His parents, Guy and Helen Starkweather, were both mild-mannered individuals who had bravely served in World War I as veterans. Determined to instill strong moral values, they raised their family to be law-abiding citizens and dedicated churchgoers. Charles, growing up in such a devout household, was surrounded by a strict religious environment from an early age. His childhood was marked by many challenges. This poor kid, and I mean, later on you're going to think he deserved it, but
some things, are notorious for creating monsters, so carry on.
He struggled with a speech impediment. I mean, he had a kind of a stammer. And he was born pigeon-toed. He had a mild birth defect. The back of his head was big. It was misshapen. And it protruded slightly from the back.
I wonder if the stammer and the head shape had something to do with one or the other.
Well, I think there was a lot going on with this guy because he wasn't normal at all. Mm-hmm. He also had a big old head full of fiery red hair. And that's always, I mean, you're going to get teased if you have red hair, you just are.
Oh, that is sad, though. He was a ginger.
Yeah.
That stuttered.
He was a pigeon-toed, big-headed ginger.
Damn. Well, he was not set up for life in a good way.
No,
he was not.
In addition, Charles encountered academic difficulties and endured relentless teasing from his classmates. He was pretty much labeled as an outcast, and shaped by these hardships, he spent his teenage years kind of in solitude, finding solace and companionship solely within his family. And he had a few friends, though. He did have a few friends, and they were all kind of like him.
Like the kind of outcast kids?
Yes. You know, the ones that stood on the, well, like I said, I'm a Gen Xer, so they were the kids who smoked cigarettes on the corner across the street from the high school.
Well, and then I'm a millennial, and it was still the
me
kids.
too.
Yeah. Wait, was that all three of us? Because go 90s. Faith is like, nope, I just later on in life.
In park we would go across. Everyone would go smoke. It was so easy to sneak out of school, I swear.
Well, when I was in school, none of it was closed campus. So I didn't have to sneak. I'd just walk off.
It was closed campus for me, but the thing is, like, some kids got out earlier than others. So if you were confident about it, they just assumed you were doing what you were doing.
Yeah.
If you look suspicious, they're like, what the heck are you doing? And you're like, and then you book it. So, yeah, that was good times.
Yeah.
Really was. They really were.
Yeah.
All right, back to our big-headed friend.
Big-headed Charles.
A ginger.
That's the funny thing.
Charles shared, he was especially close with his father, but his father passed away on the family farm, and he left Charles bereft of his unwavering support. I mean, they were pretty close.
Yeah.
But some reports also stated that his father could be pretty harsh. His parents were older when he was born, and his father was only a couple of years from retirement, and he sought to ensure that Charles would know the value of hard work and the pursuit of wealth, all of that. Do for yourself, all of those kinds of things. He was jealous of his mom. Some reports said he was real jealous of his mom because his father really loved his mother, and it took away from his time with his dad.
So he had like a very close attachment to his dad, but not the same with his mom?
Yeah.
Interesting.
By all accounts, he didn't really have, all the other kids in the family turned out really well. They did just fine. Nobody ever got in any trouble. So there was something particular with Charles that wasn't with the others. Because of the bullying, he decided to drop out of high school. He made that decision, but he worked, and so he took laborious odd jobs, and he once worked as a shoemaker and a garbage collector. He would ride on the back of those. Remember back in the, if you've ever seen movies, Faith, where they rode on the back of the garbage trucks, and they would pick up the
like held on to the side?
Yeah.
So he would do that. That's what he did what he worked. That's what he did. And he would ride into the more affluent kind of neighborhoods. And he really resented these people for having so much. Because they had enough. They always ate, but they were poor. And it wasn't, he would go over there to dump the trash of the more affluent people, and it really started to grate on him. And he became increasingly bitter and made friends with the character of James Dean, the rebel without a cause. In the 1950s, he was a movie actor who, he was the bad guy, the cool bad boy in the car, and the whole bit in the movies. James Dean actually died in a car accident because he was driving too fast in a haunted car. But that's another episode. Okay.
What kind of car was it?
A haunted car. It was a haunted car.
It was a Porsche, and I think that those things were like very dangerous at that time. Like
Yes,
rich people were just like riding around, in their little Porsches. Like they're not race cars to a certain extent.
Someday we'll have to cover the haunted car because that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Anywho, he really related to and admired James Dean, and the movie The Rebel Without a Cause appealed to him because he felt like it was an accurate portrayal of what he felt and experienced. So he started to dress the same way, he wore his hair the same way, roll up his jeans the same way, and he really personified James Dean. He tried with all of his...
He was his idol.
His idol.
That's the funny.
Charles Starkweather met Carol through Carol's sister Barbara, who was dating Starkweather's friend Bob Von Bush.
Okay, say just the name again. Bob Von Bush.
Bob...
So yeah, I was going to say it like 5 times fast.
Bob Von Bush.
Bob's Von Bush.
Okay.
Not La Bush.
La Bush.
Yeah, La Bush. Bob
Bob La Bush. Okay, we'll just call him Bob.
That's the funny.
Now, Carol Fugit was born on July 20th in 1943. And during her early childhood, Carol's father was primarily absent from her life and was reportedly pretty abusive. Carol and her sister Barbara were placed in foster care for a little while Velda, their mother, began working part-time. Their mother obtained legal custody of the children a year later. In 1952 and 53, Carol and Barbara went back to live with Velda permanently after she married Marion Bartlett, who treated those girls like he was their dad and like they were his own. And soon they welcomed a baby girl named Betty Jean.
That's a cute name.
Yeah, I like that.
Very old school, but
Betty Jean.
Yeah.
In 1956, when Carol was 13, Charles and Carol began seeing each other despite the age difference and the opposition of her mom, whom Starkweather suspected of attempting to turn Carol against him, which she hated him. And soon after, her parents and her sister objected as well. So, but they didn't care. You know how kids are. You're 13 years old and an older guy wants to date you, and
You're gonna do it.
yeah, I mean, that's very flattering, and especially if your parents tell you not to.
Yeah.
And he was a bad boy. He was all the things that, and he was fairly good looking. I mean, he wasn't Brad Pitt, but he was good looking enough, and she was enamored with him.
She's enamored with Charles.
Charles took a job close to Carol's school, and when he got off work from doing his garbage runs, he would visit her every day after school.
Actually, so like he is capable of caring about other people, essentially.
It would seem so.
Well,
It would
yeah.
seem so. I mean, his friend said, there's so much information. There's so much information and from so many people, but by all accounts, he was really, he got along with people. He was kind and he could be really good-hearted, but he could also be cruel and mean in the same, in the same breath. So they...
very narcissistic tendencies, I'm hearing.
Yeah, and him and his little gang of people, they were known in town as bad boys. I mean, you didn't mess with those guys. Everybody was scared of Charlie Starkweather.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of our friend Charlie right now. You can tell he was hardcore trying to look like James Dean.
And he really did work it.
He's got the cigarette in his mouth and the hair like back, and even like the expression he's making.
The jacket, the whole bit. Yeah, he was.
That's the funny.
So now we're going to talk about the murders. I got to warn you guys, this is gnarly. So on
For old ears only.
On December 1st, 1957, at 3:30 a.m., Charlie arrives at the Crest gas station where he purchased a pack of Winston cigarettes from the night attendant Robert Culver.
Okay, Grandma.
What?
Picked up a pack of Winston cigarettes.
Yeah.
Grandma Charlie.
My dad used to smoke those. I remember those. I remember. Blech.
Are they the really long ones?
No, they were like, I'm pretty sure that there was actual turds in them. I don't know. They smelled awful.
What?
They stunk so bad.
That makes me think of Grandma's cigarettes, the Misty Light 5000s.
Yeah, because she had the
5,000.
long ones. That's what I was thinking of, because hers were so long and she'd sit there for a whole hour smoking.
Yeah, Grandma was.
She like turn and burn you in the face just trying to have a conversation.
Yep. True.
What up, Grandma? Shout out to Grandma.
All right, so 10 minutes later,
Dark
he goes
story.
back. He goes back to the store and he buys gum. Okay, and then he leaves again before finally parking in front of the station at about 3:50 a.m. Charlie then proceeds to cover his face with a red bandana. He wore a hunting cap to conceal his red hair. He put on leather gloves. He was dressed in blue jeans, black shirt, black leather jacket, and cowboy boots. He walked in carrying a 12-gauge shotgun in one hand and a canvas bag in the other, which Charlie entered the store and demanded that Covert turn off the outside lights and fill the bag with money. Now, when I'm telling you these stories, I want you to remember that these stories are according to Charlie Starkweather, because nobody else was around. Okay? So
these are his account.
this is his account and what the evidence showed from transcripts and 100 million things that are written.
Okay, got it.
He tells Covert to turn off the outside lights, to fill the bag with money. Approximately, he got about $150 and $10 in coins. So it wasn't a lot of money.
I don't know, with grocery prices these days.
Right, and this was in the 50s, so that was, but he couldn't open the safe because Covert he was just there he was an attendant, he didn't own the place.
I feel like if it was me, I'd be like, give me all your milk and eggs.
I would now. If I was going to rob someplace, I would be like, fork over the toilet paper.
Give me all your psych meds and your insulin.
Yes.
Oh, the ground beef.
The ground.
Shoot over.
I'm hungry.
I need the ibuprofen. The whole case.
Yeah, I would rob the pharmacy and help the people.
And then I have 7 daughters, just in case anyone was wondering, not an exaggeration. So I would steal a case of My Doll, and that's what y'all would get in your Christmas stockings. Anyways.
Well, being 32 now, I'd be like, oh, thanks, Mommy. But back in the day, I'd be like, you bastard.
That's the funny.
Okay, so Charlie's robbing places. He gets $150 and some change. And what happens?
Okay. So he tells Covert to get in his car and drive. And they drive out onto Superior Street. Scuffle ensues. Covert attempts to flee. Charlie shoots him, first in the arm and then fatally in the back of the head. And after the incident, Charlie goes home and goes to sleep.
Okay, just a regular day. That's fine.
That is so weird. Because most people would have such adrenaline.
I think, first of all, most people wouldn't do that.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, say you were put in a position to shoot someone as a normal human being, you would have adrenaline and guilt and all these things. You wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah, I would probably, I can't imagine not being in shock after doing that. It's such a heinous act. But he goes to bed. Charlie goes to bed.
Well, too bad it wasn't a permanent nap.
Right. At 5:01 a.m., the body of Robert Covert was discovered on Superior Street. Teams from both the sheriff's office, headed by Sheriff Carnop, and members of the county attorney's office, they investigated the area. The authorities determined that the suspect that they were in pursuit of was likely a transient individual.
Okay.
By 6 p.m., Charlie has disposed of the weapon used in the robbery by tossing the shotgun off of the South Street Bridge into Salt Creek, paints his truck, and replaces the tires.
Is the Salt Creek big?
When I saw pictures of it, it was not quite knee deep.
Okay, so all I'm saying is if if I'm trying to get rid of a weapon, I'm going to put it into a large body of water. And why would you even have to crawl a bridge if it's a creek?
I know, but he's 19 years old.
Sounds like a jackass.
He is a jackass. And also, I would like to say that police didn't do really impressive work on this case, okay? They did not. It took them a long time to catch this guy.
That's the funny sound.
Robert George Bobby Colvert this is the guy that he killed. He was in the Navy, and he'd recently been discharged from the USS Shangri-La. He was married with a daughter on the way. He was working 2 jobs to support his family. He had just finished up his shift at the train yard and was working at a gas station to supplement his income. And
guy.
I was going to say, I don't know if his income counts as income.
This was just a sad thing because he was such a young guy. I mean, he was 21 years old, not very old.
Man, that sucks.
And that was the first murder. Now, from January 10th to the 19th, Charlie gets fired from the garbage company, and so he loses his apartment due to non-payment.
When you can't even handle garbage.
Well, remember, he just robbed a gas station. But instead of paying his rent, because he's 19, he exhausts all of his money on himself and Carol.
And the new tires and the paint job.
Yeah, he takes the money, he does the thing. He does what 19-year-olds do.
Yeah.
And he resorts to sleeping in his car at night. Charlie's parents, Guy and Helen Starkweather, they're concerned. They express concern over his excessive association with Carol. This guy was obsessed with her.
Yeah.
He was obsessed with her. And Carol's parents, Marion and Velda Bartlett, they tell Carol that she has got to stop seeing Charlie. He's way too old for her. At one point, they were concerned because she started gaining weight. Well, she was gaining weight because he was bringing her ice cream every day, but they thought, oh God, she's pregnant. That she was afraid he was too young, he was too old, and they did not like him. They didn't like his bad boy persona. They didn't like the way he behaved and the way he talked. They didn't like this guy. And so...
Well, and if you look up most of her photos, she looks like just like a doll.
She looks like an all-American girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just like real sweet looking. And she's got like the old school hairstyles. And
now she looks like the girl of the 50s. And just sweet as she can be, cute face, just really adorable. And when her parents, when they start to really display hostility towards Charlie, things get pretty tense between Charlie and Carol. They get pretty strained. And he starts acting like a crazy person. Like, lots of arguments, and there was one incident where Charlie forcibly removes Carol from a school bus, right in front of her friends and everyone. So,
okay, so when you say a crazy person, you mean like aggressive?
Very aggressive, very obsessed, very controlling.
Okay, so obsessed.
This was the reports, and this is why her parents didn't like him.
Got it.
There are even reports of Carol seeking refuge in the school restrooms after hours to evade encounters with Charlie. So
I feel like I've done that with a lot of people, so can't blame her.
I do that here at my own house, so I get it.
I was in the bathroom just like playing music and doing my hair for like 4 hours the other night just so I had me
so you
time.
could be alone. I used to go in the bathroom and eat ice cream because y'all wouldn't let me have any. Anyway,
my son doesn't like ice cream, so I can eat it without any rules, and it is becoming a problem.
There's no rules.
Someone's got to control me.
That's the funny sound.
okay, so on January 21st, Charlie obtained permission from his brother Rodney to use his .22 rifle. He tells Rodney that he intended to engage in a hunting excursion with Marion Bartlett, which was her stepdad.
Okay.
At 1, Charlie makes his arrival at the Bartlett residence. An altercation promptly ensues between Charlie and Velda Bartlett, resulting in Velda physically striking Charlie in the face several times. She tells him to get out of her house and never come back.
Velda's mad.
It's on. It is on. She hates this guy.
Mother Bear.
Yep. At 1:15, Charlie returns to retrieve his gun, only to be pushed out the door by Marion Bartlett again. One of the reports I read is that he actually kicked him in the butt right out the door.
Get it, girl.
And you know what? You remember, Lisa, when Lisa's my daughter, in case anyone wondered, and Faith is my niece.
It's true.
When
True story.
Lisa was young, I remember coming home one day with her dad, and Lisa's sitting on the porch, and there's this boy sitting next to her, and he has his head on her lap on the bench because they couldn't get it, and they were waiting for us to come home and unlock the house. And my husband come out of the car, and he said, "Come here, boy, I'll hold you." That was awesome.
It's funny because, yeah, I was embarrassed a lot as a teenager, as all teenagers are. But when he would do stuff like that, it would just make me laugh because I'm like, if you can't take his humor, beat it.
He was half joking, okay? The other half was, And I've seen him physically chase boys out of the yard before, so I get the way.
Okay, let's just clarify that goes for all 7 daughters, not just me. I'm not like I'm the
She had all these men.
But
A scarlet letter.
no, there was no scarlet letters. It was real blood.
I did go through an easy A phase though, because that came out when I was a teenager, and I was like, well, because all girls in high school think all the other girls are sluts, quote unquote, and so I would I was like, I'm gonna dress the part, and I don't care.
I cared.
She did. She cared.
That's the funny thing.
So after he gets pushed out, he comes back at 3:00. He returns to the Bartlett residence with his gun, and a dispute ensues, resulting in Velda striking Charlie. I mean, she's had enough of him. She's beating the crap out of him. Well, Charlie decides this time he's had enough, and he slaps her back. Well, Marion's not having it, so he gets up to intervene, and a physical altercation ensues. Subsequently, Charlie retreats to Carol's room. He arms himself with his rifle, and upon Marion's entry in the room with a hammer, because they had had enough of this guy, Charlie fires a fatal shot into his head. Following this, he reloads, and he shoots Velda as she brandishes a knife. They were terrified for their lives.
Yeah.
Now, next part is really sad. Little Betty Jean, she's 2 years old.
Yeah.
And she's crying because this is a terrifying situation that she's witnessing. And he takes the butt of his gun and he hits her in the head, knocks her to the ground before cutting her throat.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's so fucking dark.
Aww. Brutal.
It's awful.
Yeah, this guy is not James Dean.
It's not his idol.
No.
Okay, now Carol comes home from school at 3:30 that afternoon. There are some reports that say Charlie said she was there the whole time, but there was some confirmation that she was actually at school that day.
Okay.
She comes home at 3:30, and her and Charlie holed up in the house for a few days. At 6:30 in the morning on the day after this happened, Carol's friend Bonnie arrives to accompany Carol to school. They walked to school together. Carol informed Bonnie that she was unwell and the whole family had the flu. And the following morning, Bonnie returns once again, and she said she was starting to get worried about Carol. She thought something was wrong. They were there for 3 more days. On the 25th, Bob and Barbara Von Bush, which was the brother-in-law and her sister, visited the Bartlett's residence with their new baby.
No, not with the baby.
Carol shouted at them to keep their distance as they approached the house, and when Barbara drew near, Carol told her, you can't come in here. Everybody's sick. You can't come in here. Stay back. You can't come in here. And she implored them not to return until after Monday. Barbara said that Carol appeared fatigued and very tearful in the exchange.
Which probably they wrote off like, oh, they're all sick.
Yeah. Now, at 8 o'clock that night, Bob Von Bush and Rodney Starkweather arrive at the Bartlett residence because they're all alarmed now. Once again, they're denied entry by Carol. And now she's got a sign on the door that says something to the effect of, "We all have the flu, stay away, Miss Bartlett." Signed her mother's name down there.
Jeez.
Okay.
Come up. We've all got the flu. I'd be like, it's the Black Plague. Never come back.
Yeah. You got mono.
Okay, so they're denied entry again by Carol. They go over there and they're trying to get in, and Carol's not letting them in. No one ever sees Charlie. They just see Carol at the door. And they are concerned, so they contact the authorities to request an investigation, to get somebody to go over there and do a welfare check.
Yeah.
10 o'clock, 2 officers from the Lincoln Police Department pay a visit to the residence, where they engage in a conversation with Carol at the entrance of the house and subsequently convey that all appears to be in order.
But they didn't see all, so how could it all
Well, they didn't want to go in there. They had the flu.
I mean, crying
Like,
a river.
whatever.
I told them they did a crappy job. I'm not impressed with the police work on this one, even if it was the 50s.
Dude, if it was my family, like, you couldn't go for 24 hours. If you didn't answer, I would be like breaking down the door.
Okay, now this home, there was people in and out of it all the time. They had lots of friends, lots of relatives. People came all the time.
Yeah, I was curious. The deal.
Mr. Bartlett and Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett, and of course they had little baby Jean. He worked. He was a well-liked man, and her mom was well-liked, and they had lots of family and friends that came to visit. They just were that house where you went to have coffee, So the next day at 7 p.m., Lavetta Starkweather, who is the sister of Charlie Starkweather, attempts to visit the Bartlett home, but she's denied entry as well. And Carol quietly informs Lavetta that Charlie was in the different room with another individual and they were discussing plans to commit a bank robbery. Now, on January 27th at 9:30 a.m., the Lincoln Police Department was contacted by Pansy Street, and this is Carol's grandmother. Okay, her name is Pansy Street. She's had enough, and she told her, "I'm coming in, and if you don't let me in, I'm coming back with the police because I'm going to see my daughter." So she goes to the police, and she's concerned that something's wrong, that it's not just the flu. There's something very wrong there. So Charlie and Carol promptly depart from the Bartlett residence by walking and proceeding towards his father's residence, where he picks up his car and they take off. They're gone.
Okay.
At 10 o'clock in the morning, the grandma and a pair of law enforcement officers proceed to enter the residence only to discover it's vacancy. Nobody's there, so they leave. Charlie and Carol at 1:30 in the afternoon make a stop at Tate service station. They repair a tire. Charlie sends Carol next door to go get hamburgers. The counter girl, Juanita Bell, observed that Carol maintained constant eye contact with her while waiting for the food, and also while leaving the cafe with Charlie.
What a weirdo.
Yeah, everything about this is weird. At 1:45, Charlie and Carol arrived at August Meyer's farm. Proceeding along his road, their vehicle became immobilized in the mud, approximately 150 feet away from the Meyer house. Now, this was a guy that Charlie had known his whole life. He used to go hunting with his dad. This was a guy they knew and they hung with. He told Mr. Myers that he had his truck stuck, so Mr. Myers said, "Well, I'll go get the mules and we'll pull the truck out." He's starting to walk to the barn. Charlie shoots him in the back of the head.
Wow.
Okay. Before you go further, I have to just put it out there that I know that they're like young, but they sound like idiots because in that little itty bitty amount of time, they had to repair a tire and then they got stuck in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are they have no plan.
They don't have a plan, and the police don't have a clue. And that's the problem here. there shouldn't have been such. It shouldn't have been that hard to catch a couple of teenagers acting like idiots, but it was tough. And Lincoln, Nebraska at the time was 100,000 people, and very little crime happened. Nobody locked their doors. You know, nothing like this had ever occurred there. So they really had no clue how to handle it. I want to note that Carol's version of events differs from Charlie's with most of this story. Charlie's tendency to present, and he presented every murder act he did as like it was self-defense. And anything he could not pass off as self-defense, he blamed on Carol. So when I'm telling you the story, remember that there's two stories here.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Charlie and Carol's stories. And of course Charlie's going to put anything that's not self-defense on her because he is obviously a narcissist.
Yeah.
Like, not a little narcissist, like a big narcissist.
The big one.
And I just don't get that he even has any grasp on reality. I mean, I can't believe he even thinks that any of this is going to be okay. It's just really, really strange.
I think at some point people get so desperate in their heads that they're like, if I do this, it'll be okay. Because the idea of it not being okay is so big and scary that they're like, something will work out.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just, it's that when your frontal lobe's not completely developed and you're trying to plan your life with that tool, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and this guy's a weirdo because, like, underdeveloped frontal lobe and overdeveloped giant back of your head. No offense to anybody who may deal with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You never know.
That's the funny sound.
Well, he puts August Meyer's body in the wash house and shoots his dang dog because he won't shut up.
Oh my god, not the dog.
I know, that's not okay. Okay, like, none of this is okay, but that makes me mad.
Starkweather's, Mr. Myers was known as this really quiet and gentle kind of man. So there's nothing that he had that he wouldn't have given them, probably. There was no reason he had to shoot him. Somehow this was self-defense.
No, somehow this is just this guy getting off on hurting people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They stole a bunch of food and money from his farm, and following this, Charlie proceeds to enter Meyer's house. Carol remains in the kitchen. He ransacks the house. Now, at 4:30 that afternoon, Bob Von Bush and Rodney Starkweather return to the Bartlett home because everybody knows something's wrong. And they discover the frozen body of Marion Bartlett, Carol's stepfather, in the chicken coop. The bodies of Velda Bartlett, Carol's mother, her body had been stuffed down the outhouse toilet. And Betty Jean's body was in a box on top of the toilet seat.
What? Like, the lack of regard. Like, you can tell that there's no guilt or empathy, because you don't, like, there's no care in that whatsoever.
None. I mean, he put her in the toilet because he hated her.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you don't do stuff like that to people. If you had to kill someone,
It's just, like, so gross that it's like, how to... Yeah.
And it's one thing to kill them and then you just disrespect them after they're dead.
Yeah.
Like,
I tend to celebrate people's lives after. That is not the way I would go.
a normal person, like if someone comes in your house and you have to shoot them, your heart's broken that you had to do that, but you had to do it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, literal self-defense, not Charlie's version.
Yeah, it was not a good version.
But
So now they know that there's 3 murders, and they know possibly 4, because people are starting to suspect Charlie of having killed the gas station attendant.
Make it 5 with the dog.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we do count in this circle.
Okay, now Charlie and Carol are stuck in the mud, and they're trying to get it out. And this farmer, Howard Genichi, drives by.
Genichi.
And
How's that spelled?
Genichi.
Literally Genichi.
That's what it said.
No, I know. I just have never heard that name before.
I mean, he pulled him out with his car, towed it out. And so this guy gets off. He has no idea how lucky he was. They drove back to the residence, and they see the cops everywhere, because now they know about the Bartletts.
Yeah.
So they turn around and they drive the other way, and these idiots get stuck again.
Oh, God.
I love that for them.
Honestly.
So he thinks he's going to go back to the Myers farm and hang out there, right?
Wait. Yeah.
Okay, because everybody's at the Bartletts. So they get stuck again. So now they have to get out of the car and walk. And as they're walking on foot, about 7:40 p.m. in the evening, Robert Jensen and Carol King stop to give Charlie and Carol a ride. They're going to take them back to town to use the phone.
Don't do it.
They get in the car. Charlie positions a rifle at Jensen's head, directs him to drive. They halt the vehicle about 50 feet away from a storm cellar. Charlie guides the couple towards the cellar, proceeding to fatally shoot them from behind as they descend the steps.
How did he hide the gun if they were walking, you know? Because I wouldn't pick up someone with a gun. I'm like, hell no.
Well, I don't know. 1950 Lincoln, Nebraska. I don't know. I don't know if he had it under his coat or exactly what, but he picked them up. Now, his story is fairly simple compared to the one that Carol told. She was brutally raped and stabbed.
Jeez.
And also shot. That was the autopsy report. Here's a trigger warning, there was rocks and debris inside of her.
Oh, no.
From
What the heck?
It was bad. It was a horrible, awful thing.
Does Charlie give a reason for why he did that in that way?
None that I could find.
Like, I'm wondering what it represents to him. I know it's a weird thing to, like, in all the information you just gave me, but why?
Well, you're going to see here in a minute, there's a pattern that's going to form here.
Of rocks?
No, of the way that Charlie treats these women.
So, like garbage.
Yes. These two are dead. Carol King and Robert Jensen are dead. Carol King was 16 years old.
Okay.
She was the girlfriend to Robert Jensen. She was a cheerleader. People said she was really smart. She was pretty. She was funny. She was kind. She was one of those really popular girls. Everybody loved her. And Robert was said to be a cheerful 17-year-old boy. He loved to laugh. He was always pulling off a practical joke. And it broke everyone's heart.
Yeah. I'm picturing like just that couple that's like in a small town and everybody knows them and just like good kids.
They were probably out on this dirt road just being lovers. They were driving down the road, but you know how you get in the car.
Yeah, just like teenagers in love.
Yeah. So they're in the Jensen's car now, and they're driving, and Carol throws out a bunch of school books belonging to Robert Jensen out the window, which this will be significant later. While approaching Lincoln, Charlie just drives right past the police station, confident that they're completely safe in the car. And they drive off and they decide they're going to head to Washington State and stay with his brother. Now, Charlie and Carol arrive in Hastings, Nebraska about 1 o'clock on January 28th, and Charlie decides he's going to turn the car around and go back to Lincoln. Nobody knows why they decided this. but that was the thing. And so later he stated that he believed the authorities would not anticipate his return.
That actually is not stupid, because if you see someone take off, you're going to assume they're on the run.
And he was right, because the police told everyone, they're gone from here, you can go home. Okay? So they get back to at 3:30 in the morning. They get back to Lincoln, and they go to that affluent part of town that Charlie really had a problem with. And they spent the night in the car until the following day. About 8 a.m., Charlie and Carol wake up and embark on a search for a suitable residence to enter. And Charlie's prior cleanup efforts in the vicinity made him well acquainted with the residents in their houses. So he knew who was where, and who was older and younger. He knew who was in those houses.
Yeah.
And he selected the Ward residence, and it was located on South 24th Street. Upon arrival, Charlie instructed Carol to remain in the car while he approached the kitchen window and rapped forcefully with his rifle. Now, Lillian Finsel is the maid of the Wards. She was deaf. She greets Charlie at the door, and Charlie realizes she can't hear, so he writes down instructions to her, and he's got his gun, right? So his first directive is for Lillian to relocate that noisy dog into the bathroom, which she does. And soon after, Clara Ward emerges in a robe and is instructed to take a seat at the table. Charlie then signals for Carol to come inside. Upon entering the kitchen, Carol is offered a cup of tea before retiring to the library to rest. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ward and the maid begin tidying up the house as a way to occupy their time, because they know Mr. Ward will be home at some point. At 11 a.m., Mrs. Ward provides Charlie with his morning meal in the library. Charlie's board was found mired in the mud at the Meyer farm stuck in the mud at the Meyer farm at approximately 12:15. By 1 o'clock, Mrs. Ward requested to head upstairs in order to change her clothes and her shoes. At 1:45, Charlie ascends the upper level to check on Mrs. Ward, only to be met with gunfire from her .22 pistol.
Oh, shit.
So girl.
She's a badass.
It's sad, my friend.
In self-defense, he throws a knife that strikes her in the back.
Oh, damn.
After moving her...
I was really hoping she'd take him.
Yeah, but...
Me too.
Me too.
Never get anything I want. Just kidding.
After moving her to her bedroom, Charlie descends. He wakes up Carol, instructing her to guard the maid with the firearm. Returns to the bedroom. He discovers Mrs. Ward attempting to use the phone, and he is hindered by her dog. To neutralize the obstacle, Charlie uses his rifle to subdue the dog.
Bad.
He's got a thing against dogs, I swear.
I know.
I think dogs have a thing against him.
Maybe it's mutual.
Yeah.
Mutual hate.
Mrs. Ward is bound and left on the bed, as is the maid. And both of the women are stabbed and tortured. And soon, about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, because there's no cops around because they're all at the Myers farm now, right?
Yeah.
And they've found Mr. Myers. They know that stuff's going on.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, because we didn't go into detail about the cops at that house.
There was about 35 Lincoln police and deputy sheriffs and state troopers, and they're all out at the Myers farm.
That's a lot of police force.
It is.
For people to just be, in the vicinity causing...
Well, see, everybody thinks they're gone now, though. Because Charlie's strategy was right.
Which is so weird, because he's obviously stupid.
He's, diabolically weird. I mean, it's really crazy, the things. And plus, nobody had ever seen anything like that in this area. So they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. And now this has turned into a serial killing, words of which they don't even know at that time. So they're just doing the best they can. They're handling this one murder at a time.
Yeah. Is there... I'm like, who's the star detective? The Matthew McConaughey of True Detective of this story.
Well, let me tell you, the assistant police chief of Lincoln made the announcement through a loudspeaker that the individual inside the premises was aware of the authorities' presence, and thereby a grace period of 5 minutes was granted for the individual to surrender with his hands. And this is all going on at the Myers thing. There's this huge to-do. They're all out there with the guns, and they've got it pointed, and Charlie's not there. They were going to discharge tear gas. They mobilized toward the whole location. They went in there with bandanas, cloths to minimize the effects of the tear gas on their own faces. And they run in there, and they find is August Myers in a wash house.
What kind of what kind of safety gear is that for police? Put on your bandana.
That's what it is. That's what they were wearing, bandanas, and it's because they shot the tear gas canister in there.
Try harder.
Do better.
Yeah, for real. Not helpful.
Why did they think they were in there, though, still?
Because Charlie's car was stuck, remember?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because his car was stuck in the mud, and they couldn't get it out. Now, there was a farmer that lived next to Myers, and he thought he had heard a gunshot earlier in the day. And he just had this, he was watching this whole siege go down, and he remembered the gunshot he had heard the night before. So he kind of gets in his car, and just on intuition, he makes his way to a storm cellar, because that's the only place he could think of there would be anyone. But I'm thinking, I don't know if he was thinking they might be in there, hiding in there, or what, but he uncovers the deceased bodies of the young couple. He goes back to the scene, he tells the authorities, and then all hell breaks loose, and there's a widespread confusion, and nobody knows what's going on, because nobody's anywhere. There's just dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not that mad at them for not understanding or, catching up with Charlie and Carol yet, because can you imagine, it would just be so confusing, and at that time, they didn't have, media that gets to you as soon as you pick up your phone, so it's the craziest shit ever. I would just be overwhelmed. Actually, I'm kind of good under pressure, so these guys suck. I'm just kidding.
Never mind.
I changed my mind. No, but really, it's...
Well, he set the bar, I'll tell you. Charlie Starkweather set the bar.
For what? Evilness?
At 3:30 p.m., the Bennett Hardware Store, by 3:30 in the afternoon, the Bennett Hardware Store in Lincoln, Nebraska, had been completely depleted of its stock of ammunition, firearms, and knives. There were over 100 troopers dispatched from Omaha, Columbus, Grand Island, and Fremont to provide security for the whole Bennett region.
Yeah.
At 4:30, reports from the radio state that County Attorney Elmer Scheel, there's your guy,
Scheel,
has brought forth charges of first-degree murder both against Charlie Starkweather and Carol Fugit. The current status of Carol's well-being remained uncertain. Nobody really knew what was going on with her.
If she was involved or not.
Or even if she was alive.
Yeah, okay.
So it's on the radio, remember that. So they know kind of what's going on. So Charlie thoroughly searches the upstairs bedrooms. He's at the ward's house. He takes what he needs or whatever. And shortly thereafter, the afternoon paper is delivered, and Charlie reviews it initially, selecting and removing articles before passing it to Carol. So I'm assuming that, I don't know for sure where this report came from. I don't know if this was in Carol's
thinking Carol's statement?
Carol's statement or Charlie's statement. I don't know who that was.
But it was in a police report?
It was in a transcript from one of the government websites from Nebraska.
Okay.
I have that information, and it'll be in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah, so it was an official statement of their their depiction of their own stories. What I say that because
Most of this is completely paraphrased. I am telling you that because there was so much information. I was trying to get it shortened down so that we weren't here for 3 days. There's a lot.
Yeah, we're like an hour in.
Charlie, so now we're going to, now that he's gone through and ransacked everything, and Mr. Ward, Mr. C. Lauer Ward, convenes a meeting with the Nebraska governor, his personal friend and confidant, Governor Anderson, within the confines of the governor's office. Okay, he's hanging out and having lunch with the governor. No big deal, just a couple of guys having a fish fry, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, that's...
And they're talking, they engage in conversation about the Starkweather murders, and Ward is displaying a profound sense of distress over such a tragic event occurring in the city of Lincoln. So he gets done, he goes home at 6 p.m., he walks through the door and Charlie shoots him in the head.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my God.
That was not my expectation for the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
Honestly.
The women have been stabbed and killed, and there was a very sexual... They were stabbed in their private parts. And that's the part that is strange. The men are shot in the head. The women, all three of the women that were killed were stabbed and stabbed in their private areas.
Huh. The first thing that pops into my head when you say that is the jealousy he had. You know, like jealous of his mom because his dad loved her.
Yeah. Could be. Could very well be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lillian, let's talk about those victims just really quick. Lillian was the maid in the Ward household. She'd worked there for 30 years. She was shy, gentle, bashful, and really quiet. She'd been there half her life. They loved her. She was part of their family. Mrs. Ward, she played the piano. She volunteered for the junior league. She had one son. His name was Mikey. Mr. Lara, he was a wealthy industrialist, and he ran a successful business. He fished with friends. He read all the time, and he smoked a lot of cigars. That was the report those were some of the things they said about them.
He was just a chill to himself, happy dude.
He was a hard-working dude.
Yeah.
The couple belonged to the Country Club, the University Club, and the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. They loved to travel, and they took their son with them all over the world to explore.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Faith.
And I'm Sharon.
Join us next time on She Sees Weird People.